We're getting a preview of what Donald Trump will likely say during his inaugural address today. According to the Wall Street Journal, the president-elect will call for a revolution of common sense. In excerpts that were shared with the paper, Trump is expected to say, "I returned to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country. My message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization.
So John Meacham, yesterday I spoke with somebody close to Donald Trump who said he is in the best mood they've ever seen him in his adult life. And the question of vengeance came up. And said right now that's not on his mind. You look at what's been excerpted to the Wall Street Journal. Just that little snippet looks positive, but you listen to the language from yesterday, and of course a lot of negativity about Joe Biden. I'm curious what your thoughts are today on the administration leaving, one that you know very well, one that occasionally you have to write speeches for, the one coming in, and also those polls that I talked about this weekend, that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal polls both showing on illegal immigration, on tariffs, on crime, on a lot of these issues that Donald Trump led with throughout the campaign, on transgender rights. About men who transition post-puberty, not being able to compete in women's sports. You know, a lot of those issues were they are 80-20. And Americans in the Wall Street Journal poll, while they want immigrants that came here even illegally and have been here for 10 years, you know, and worked hard, played by the rules, they want them to stay in. Those that have been here for 4 or 5 years, just 4 or 5 years, and of course, criminals, they agree with Donald Trump. They should be out. So it's interesting where the American people are. Again, even if they didn't love Donald Trump, and even if they didn't vote for Donald Trump, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times both say it's very interesting that he does, as Claire said, he's got his finger on the pulse of a lot of those working Americans.
Yeah. I mean, one of the remarkable things about today is we will see in a tangible way, a tactile way, the fundamental tension of democratic governance, lowercase d, which is that a single person will take an oath administered by another single person, representing the person administering the oath is the Chief Justice of the United States. The person taking the oath has won the presidential election. And that person swears allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. So you have this highly individualistic, seemingly monarchical moment, but the pledge is to this 18th century system amended, but also a spirit of that Constitution that has shaped us for 2.5 centuries. That's the tension. And I'm delighted President Trump is in a good mood. But what are the points of the Constitution? One of the points of the rule of law, one of the points of having the spirit of the laws is that my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness shouldn't be dependent on the mood of a single person. That's why we have a democracy. That's why we have a constitutional republic.
Let me ask you, John, during this break, John, let me ask you what your thoughts have been. We both know the 11th Circuit, one of the most conservative, if not the most conservative circuits in America, ruling against Donald Trump on an issue that mattered a great deal to him. The Supreme Court ruling on probably the issue that mattered the most personally, him, 5-4 against him. 38 Republican House members saying no after Elon Musk and Donald Trump threatened them on the CR. The United States Senate saying no to Don Gates, saying no to Rick Scott, voting in John Thune, somebody that Donald Trump said do not vote. I'm wondering, again, we have no idea where this is going to go. But have we not seen at least in this interim, have we not seen institutions and let's just say it, the courts doing what the courts did his first term? So it's not just one person.
Well, but we're giving the nuclear codes to one person in about 4 hours.
Yes, we are.
And we're right. And we have seen 4 years ago, this day, we have seen what happens when that one person declines to accept results that he doesn't like. All I'm saying is this is in the tradition of John Adams. When John Adams was vice president, he wrote and said, the American presidency, I'm paraphrasing, is central, and it shall be the object of all eyes, the subject of all attention. And so it's a vital role, both constitutionally and culturally. And a dispositive number of American voters have decided to entrust it again to someone who has broken with tradition in ways that many people cheer and which may be constructive, but he also broke with tradition in ways that were potentially destructive. And so that is the tension we will now live with. Will the institutions hold? I pray so. I think the evidence is yes. I mean, this is a country that for 250 years, more often than not, has gotten things wrong. But here we are, still believing this experiment is worth defending. And so what I would say to people who are seeing today in a darker light, in a darker shade, is you can't surrender your agency in a democracy because you lose a single election. This is about we, the people. We are a player in this symphony, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be depleting. And as we all know, there are a lot of people who are exhausted. But as John Belushi said, because I'm John Adams to John Belushi, we didn't give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor.
No, we didn't.
Yes.
So we can't give up now.
Wow.
You know, he
brings it all the way around.
He's got that college
sweatshirt
underneath there.
Yeah, he's got that poster that every
Nice.
college kid has.
Yeah,
Belushi.
connecting with the youth, of yesterday.
The kids love him. Of like 1970.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a good reference, John. Well done.
We like it.
Just to give people a little bit of a run of show, we'll see President-elect Trump and Melania had a service at St. John's Church about 8:30. Then they'll go have tea at the White House with President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. Then President Biden and the president-elect will ride together from the White House to the Capitol, where the new president will be sworn in just before noon today. So, Jonathan Lemire, as we talk through all this, today is the day with executive orders, at least 50, we're told, perhaps more, going into effect. We hear he may sign some of them in front of a large crowd at Capital One Arena, where all the rhetoric becomes policy today on mass deportations, on tariffs, on transgender athletes, all these issues that were kind of at the center of the campaign this year. He's going to do something about right away.
Yeah, the Trump team I talked to over the weekend said they really want to have like a shock and awe. They really want to come out really running this time around. In 2017, on his inauguration day, he signed one executive order. This time, they say it could be well north of 100. The first, perhaps, right there in Statuary Hall at the Capitol. He might sign a few. Then over at Capital One Arena, where they're going to have a rally. That's in place of the traditional speech on the Mall because of the cold. Those events have been moved indoors. And then still more yet at the White House later today. We could tick through some of them. Some of these, of course, are largely symbolic. They won't have any teeth to them. Others will. A number of are on immigration. We're going to declare a national emergency at the border, freeing up additional money for Department of Defense. He's going to abolish, bring back the Remain in Mexico policy. He's going to try to reset how the United States deals with asylum seekers, targeting we might see the first raids by the immigration services later today or tomorrow. Trump aides have previewed. He's going to talk about energy, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement yet again. That is what he did in 2017 as well. Call for more drilling, reverse the Biden ban on liquefied gas, halt the construction of new wind terminals. We know Donald Trump hates those.
Can I ask really quickly about immigration? He and Holman have been focused on violent criminals. Any hint at all from what you've heard and your reporting, is that going to be the main focus, or is it going to be more expansive?
That's going to be the first focus. But Stephen Miller, of course, who's sort of the immigration czar and sort of the architect of this plan, previewed over the weekend to reporters that it might go beyond that. It might be more sweeping. It might be more expansive beyond just violent criminals in those early stages. And again, we expect those to begin within the first 24 hours or so. We know he's going to launch DOGE, that new agency, although maybe without one of its founders, as Vivek Ramaswamy, may be heading for the door already, ending DEI in the federal government and the like. The list goes on and on. Some of them are relatively meaningless, and others that he promised during his campaign, like to revoke birthright citizenship, we know cannot happen. But this is going to be, they're going to try to, unlike the chaos. Remember, we all remember that first week of 2017,
right,
when it seemed like the Trump White House couldn't get out of its own way. They feel with a more seasoned team and more loyalists this time around, and Republicans in the House and the Senate along for the ride, they feel like they're going to be able to get at least some of this done right away.